Welcome into the Mental Moments podcast with your guide, Healing Hottie. Mental Moments is where we walk through life experiences, yours and mine, finding the ingredients to make life sweeter, a conversation to consider our minds, bodies, and soul, moving with gratitude, one step at a time. Do you feel that? Something big, something amazing even, is coming, but you're not quite sure how to prepare for it. Today, we're talking about how to prepare for the unseen things with excitement and anxious for nothing. Let's walk through this together. Welcome in. Welcome. How are we feeling today? I really want to know. Make sure you drop it in the comments. Today we are talking all about how to get ready so you know that is not how it goes. How to stay ready so you don't have to get ready, right? How to prepare yourself for things that are coming, things that you are having faith for, things that you are hopeful for, things that you are just like, I don't know today that I'm ready, but how do we get there? We're going to walk through it together of things that I have done that I probably should be doing and that may be able to help you too. So let's get into it. At some point between childhood and entering the workforce, you had a dream, you had a desire, you had some beautiful goal in mind in life that you wanted to achieve. You did. There was something. It was something amazing, right? And depending where you are in the world, sometimes those dreams can fade way to the background and often feel like they may have disappeared. Really, dreams tend to get lost in the shuffle, but I want you to take a moment and I want you to just think about whatever that dream is, and not was, but is. Envision it as like present right now, today. And maybe you have a few. I know I do and still do. Okay. I'm not even going to say I did. I still do. And if you have a few, at the core, what are you trying to achieve or solve? Because many times when we have a dream, when we have those desires, they are typically rooted in some sort of problem-solving-esque thing. Even if it's when I turn 50, I want to have a ranch. Okay, I want to have a ranch with horses on it and maybe a few chickens running around, and that is a goal. And that problem that is solving is just attaining a physical version, right, of peace. I talked about it in the last episode of season 1, that there was once a dream to build a self-serving system that would allow you to generate biofuel at home made out of algae. And I wanted people to have the ability to self-sustain and leave less of a carbon footprint. I wanted to create a space for kids to safely create. I was a theater kid, but I was very much ensemble material. It's very few shows that I did that I was like a part of, like the main cast. And so I really wanted to create a space for kids to be able to create where they feel like they have to be behind the scenes and like work on their inner star and work on their voice and not, everybody can't be the one, but within yourself, like how do you build yourself up? What tools do you need to help build that confidence, build those skills up so you're not often and continually placed in your mind in the background? That was one, or is one. Another, when I was pursuing physical therapy as a career, I really wanted to create a free or no cost clinic for special needs children that require physical or occupational therapy services. Still a dream, a goal of mine, because I was blessed with a mom who was a physical therapist assistant, and one of her earlier jobs, she worked for a military school system, and she was the physical therapist for many of the children there. Just seeing like them light up during exercise and seeing them just be supported not only as a child, but really like have support as a family. You know, these teachers, my mom was very much in communication often with family, because the work that you do in the school has to translate even more so at home. And that's for every single child, but especially for like the physical therapy portion for, you know, these particular students. And so that was just always like, you know, something that I was like, man, like if outside of the military, do people have access to this? I know there are organizations like Ronald McDonald, and I'm fortunate to live in a city that have a number of different charitable organizations and nonprofits, but I didn't know at the time of this dream as a kid if that existed, and I wanted to create that. And I know that I still have the opportunity to do so because I'm still alive, okay? But those were like many of the things that I was like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do those things, right? And at the core, it was just helping people, one, have the support necessary outside of themselves, but giving them the tools to be able to feel strong enough every day as they stand within themselves. Because I think that a lot of times our lack of access truly prevents our like growth and stability. And so, yeah, I wanted to create ways, many different ways for people to do that in its essence. Now, all of that sounds beautiful and philanthropic and loving and community-based, and yay. The truth of the matter is that somewhere along the way, and I could probably go back and think of the exact moment, money became the motive. And that's not untrue for many of us. Unfortunately, especially in America, we grow up in a very capitalistic society. And we grow up in a very, especially as a Black woman, especially as a woman, especially as a human being living in America, you are often put in these positions where you just have to survive. You just got to make it. You got to make it a Friday. Okay. You got to make it a payday. You got to hope your card will overdraft so you can get some gas today and just get you home. Okay. And that's the truth for many, many people. Right. And that was my story for a while, a long while, especially because I entered the workforce really at like 17, 18. And so starting off like not even fully into adulthood yet, I cannot even drink or smoke a cigarette for real, but I'm having to worry about, you know, huge undertakings and things and trying to survive. Oh, you know, that dream of building a physical therapy clinic, and I'm not even a actualized physical therapist, okay, way in the back. That I'm sure there are many people listening, watching today that can resonate with that many times over. Because of that, we just get involved heavily in, I got to make it to this point. And listen, survival will crush your dreams if you let it, okay? It will absolutely just obliterate them if you allow them to. And it's unfortunate, but it does happen. It's also important to recognize that the needs and requirements and the demands of life absolutely can shift the way that you look forward, the way that you build for the future, if you let it. But let's you and I, right? I'm going to reignite this flame within me to start today to shift by just simply remembering, putting those dreams, putting those goals, putting those desires more forward in our minds, and remember our why. Remember that in all the things that I mentioned of like at the core, I really wanted to help others help themselves. And so like, if I just like continue to, even as I'm sitting here recording this today, if the words that are flowing out of my mouth are pouring from a place of, I want to help others be able to help themselves so they feel more enabled to help others help themselves. And then all those things that we continue to love each other as we love ourselves, right? That's the motive for me, but it may look different for you. And so what is that, and how do we sit in that going forward in all that we continue for the rest for the rest of the day, wherever you are hearing this, seeing this, how can we do that? A few episodes back, we talked about capacity, right? We talked about what that kind of looks like when things start to get overwhelming, and how do you create space in your life for all the important things, right? We talked about that. If you can remember, if you don't remember, go back and watch that episode. Go back and listen to that episode right now. Just pause it and then come back and talk to me. Okay, we talked about creating capacity in times in your life where things and priorities start to shift. And it's important thinking about capacity. What we often do is we fill our days to the brim with all of like the needs and demands and all of the requirements of the day. But have we left room for those dreams and desires and those goals and those purpose-filled things to move forward at all? Like, do we have some space for that? And really, if we are starting right now today, if we are starting to push those things back further up to the front of our mind, and we hold that now in our heart, what does it look like to just start to create room for those things? Maybe it looks like blocking off your calendar for 30 minutes to write about anything, write about what comes to mind, write about an idea for that project, write about your feelings, write a song. I don't know, whatever it looks like. Maybe it looks like spending some time out in public to get inspired. I love to people watch. I love to just go places and post up and just see how the world is living. And I get very inspired by that. And overhearing conversations, I think I mentioned in season 1, there was like a critical coffee shop conversation that I overheard that really allowed me to have some of the confidence that I have today in the conversations that I have business-wise. And so what does that look like to just start to make a little bit of room? If you're a parent, does that look like getting up earlier or staying up late? Does it look like sitting in your car before you go in the house and deal with them kids? Okay. What does that look like to start to create space? I tend to connect quite a bit, unintentionally and intentionally, of people in the healthcare space, in the mental health, in nursing, pediatrics, in medical facilities. Like, I tend to just kind of like, I just want to know what it's like to walk in your shoes, right? And in hearing how they've built, okay, now I'm just going to like write down what that facility would just contain. Like, what are some of the elements? And then go out and like validate that just by a Google search, just by like maybe scheduling a tour. But see, now you see how it starts to like spiral. You get like these like, okay, I'm going to start here, but like I could then do this if I know that, and it moves. But the thing is like, if I just give it a little bit of room, if I give it a little bit of room, that those things that once used to like tug on me, what does it look like to just like allow that to grow and take root? But you got to give it a little bit of space. And that's something that hasn't happened yet. But let's just take something tangible. One of the things that like I keep as a core tenet is that stay learning, stay curious, be willing to explore, just always remain a student of life. Like I never want to stop learning. And I'm not talking about going back to school, even though that is, something that I desire to do in some form of fashion, but I truly never want to stop being a student. I'm always willing to listen and learn. And because of that, one of the reasons why this podcast came to be is because in that time of like where I didn't really have time to build the podcast, or I wasn't making time to build the podcast, I was keeping myself in a creative space. I was keeping myself around other people that had podcasts. I was reading books. I was watching other podcasts. I was just studying and learning and taking in new information and approaches and backgrounds and lighting and all the things. I would just have hypothetical conversations with people who are in the creative space, right? I created time, even though it wasn't like I wasn't doing the thing. I created time to be so immersed in those spaces and environments and hearing the word podcast like over and over and over again. I'm like, dang, you got to start that podcast. You got to do something. You really have to figure this out. And so now, like, I encourage you, even if you don't necessarily have all the time in the world, what are things that you can do to continue to learn about those spaces where you want to go? Because the more that you can visualize it, the more that you can sort of start to imagine, like, I'm there, I'm experiencing it, it's my life, like I'm like all those things, it starts to become it feels a little bit more tangible. I am not a physical therapist to this day. Okay. I don't own medical facilities. Okay. But the more that I have immersed myself in just like learning, it feels a little bit more attainable. This podcast became to be because I was creating space, and in that space that I had, I was just immersing myself in those environments, even though I did not have it. And so I encourage you to do the same with those dreams and those goals. And honestly, this podcast was going to start off as like just an audio podcast, but it very quickly, like once I became like immersed in it, I was like, oh no, it needs a video element, because one of the things that I wanted to be able to understand is who I am. And my body language will tell you exactly who I am pretty quickly in most scenarios. Not every scenario, but it will tell you pretty quickly like who I am. And I wanted you to see how excited I was. I wanted you to see like when I'm saying, yeah, that was a hard thing. I wanted people to see that. I wanted people to see the growth. I started season 1 with long hair, long locks. It's a bob now. Okay. Things have shifted and changed. You know, we got a little bit of an upgrade. The set looks different, that kind of thing. When I'm saying that we doing this together, I'm figuring out the things, and many things I'm just praying for it all when it doesn't come to me, that kind of thing. But truly, I want you to understand that those ideas that are rooted in love and wanting to help people and wanting to help yourself, when wanting to achieve beautiful and amazing things, right? That are not solely self-serving, that are not harmful to others, are absolutely not for no reason. I mean, even the bad ideas are not for no reason, but we could get into that into another episode, another podcast season. Honestly, we could dedicate to that. But truly, it isn't for a reason. And those seeds need to be watered and nurtured. And if you're not making the space, if you're not giving the time, if you're not fertilizing those things, they absolutely can feel like they've dried up and fizzled away. But I challenge you, I call you, I implore you to truly begin to bring those back up to the surface, uncover those seeds, see what they need. They got a little sprout, they haven't sprouted yet, do they need a little bit of water, and then cover them up and continue to nourish them and let them grow and build. And how they start is not necessarily how they have to finish. Y'all, it's truly, you deserve a life where not only that you're proud, but you just feel fulfilled in that life, and no matter what you're doing. So you have this goal, you have this dream, you have this idea, you don't know how you're going to get there. You got to start by understanding what it is and the why. You have to also just create a little bit of space at the beginning for it to breathe and to grow and understand what it could be, and then immerse yourself. And even if you don't have it, so that way you can visualize what it looks like and it can become true. And I promise you, again, even if that physical therapy clinic does not turn into a physical therapy clinic and it turns to something else, at least I begin to give it space to grow. You're literally seeing the example, the tangible evidence of one of those seeds, one of those goals, one of those dreams coming to be by just tuning in every week with me.
Remember, this is a conversation, so make sure that you follow us on Instagram at Mental Moments and Healing Hottie so we can keep this conversation going. I pray what took me 12 steps takes you 3. Keep building a life you will be proud of, no matter how long it takes. Until next time.